Lions Rock Productions.
This is Jay Moore.
This is Greg Cruz.
This is Bryce Vine.
This is Dexter from The Offspring.
This is Nathan
This
East.
is Sebastian Younger.
This is Daryl Aiden.
This is Stuart Copeland.
This is Mick Gillette.
This is Andy Summers.
This is Dr. Bob Greenberg.
This is Gabby Reese.
This is Rob Bell.
Hey, this is John Leon Guerrero.
Hey, and this is Pete A. Turner.
Hello, I'm Jim Mora, former football coach at the Atlanta Falcons, the Seattle Seahawks, and UCLA Bruins, current football analyst at ESPN, and hopefully future coach again. And I'm on the Break It Down show, and I'm excited to be here.
And now, the Break It Down show with John Leon Guerrero and Pete A. Turner.
And we've also got Phil, because we got Washington in the house. I had to bring Phil out. Phil's a national championship.
Doghouse.
It's a doghouse.
You're in the doghouse.
I'm in the doghouse.
D-A-W.
D-A-W-G.
Yeah.
All right. And so we got Jim here. We actually have Mark Pattison back in the background, so I'm surrounded by UW guys, and that's pretty cool. I like it. You've got your purple shoes on, Phil, representing.
Sweet.
Yep. So it's really cool to have you. Came in from the beach. We thank you for your time. You're on your way out the door with Mark up to Sun Valley, so living the life. And, we're not the scoop, but we are going to be one of the first outlets to announce that you just got picked up at ESPN to do some college analysis.
Yeah, it was just announced just a few minutes ago. I'm going to be in Bristol, Connecticut every weekend doing in-studio work with ESPN and analyzing games, doing wraps, halftime reports, things like that. I'm excited about it. I have a passion for the sport of football and specifically college football, so I'm anxious to get going on that.
What for you is the best thing about the college game? I mean, the NFL game is wonderful in its own right, but...
Oh, boy, I'll tell you, so many things. You know, I was in the NFL for 25 years, and I loved every minute of it, but nothing touched me like those 6 years at UCLA and coaching college athletes. And really it starts with the recruiting process where you get to know these young men at a very early age. You understand their background, their family background, some of the obstacles that they've had to overcome to get where they are. And here in Southern California, you know, I recruit a lot of kids from the inner city.
Sure.
Many of them from single-parent homes, some with, you know, quite a bit of support and many without a lot of support at all. To take them into the UCLA environment or the college environment going forward and help them find a path towards, you know, reaching their dreams was really rewarding for me. It's certainly about wins and losses. You have to win.
Of course.
In the NFL, you're only judged on wins. And I found a way in college football to judge myself on things other than just winning on the field on Saturday, and that was were our student athletes graduating. And I'm proud to say we took our graduation success rate at UCLA from 56 to 79 in the years I was there %, which is good. We had the highest team GPA ever.
Let me ask you this, too, because I know that number is counted on 4 years. Is that right?
Well, no, they have an amount of time that they can come back and get their degree.
Okay.
So many that number is continuing to grow. We put about $1.5 million into academic support per year just for our football players. But our guys, we had more players on the academic honor roll at UCLA than ever in the history of the college. But more importantly is I believe we had a 100% rate of guys going out and getting jobs when they were done with school.
The real dream.
And that might be in the NFL or, you know, afterwards. So we implemented a program when they were freshmen. They would come in and I'd connect them with a mentor in an area that they were interested initially.
Yeah.
And that mentor would, you know, kind of, and this was outside of the academic environment, outside of the UCLA environment, but a UCLA person, and try to help them network and create connections, find things that were of interest to them that could help them when their football career was over. And we had a ton of success. So that's like, you know, those were other ways I could judge myself. Yeah.
For sure. And I listened to, and I guess definitely recommend you guys listen to Mark Pattison's episode of Finding Your Summit. I believe it's episode 2 that you were on, and you talked about, you know, going to these homes where they may have a dirt floor with just linoleum thrown over the top of it, or you may have to get a day pass. And that's a real thing. I used to work selling porta shitters in southern Florida. Mm-hmm. And there was a time where I walked into a convenience store because it's hot and I need some Gatorade to keep on, you know, driving on. And the guy's like, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Oh, I just getting some supplies? He's like, no, what are you doing
White guy.
here? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was in the wrong part of town. I'm just working. I'm just driving up and down the street trying to find places that need porta shitters,
Mark and I laugh. We'd go in. He'd come to games with me on Friday nights, sometimes recruiting. And, I had a nice car that UCLA provided. And we'd go in some of these neighborhoods and guys would be like, hey, you're going to park this here. And, of course, they knew who I was. So, they called it. They said I had a hood pass.
Yeah.
So I could go into the hood and I was safe. But you talk about, linoleum on a dirt floor. The kid, it's a real story, and he was a first-round draft pick this year.
Wow.
And I was at the draft with him and his mom. And, of course, he didn't come to UCLA. It was a long story, but I kept a relationship with him. When he got drafted, just to be able to give him a hug and realize that he had done something that was so tremendous for the future of his family and generationally, he created generational wealth. He was able to help his mom now get a step up. I mean, those are the things that really affect you in college football.
Yeah, that ability to go out. Pete Carroll talked about when he was, with USC doing the same thing, going around his neighborhood and talking to people. And, he's just an Energizer bunny, just out there interacting with people. And I wonder, so you have all these, as a kid who's got a lot of talent, who's national level talent, is getting approached by Jim Mora and all these other people. What on earth is Nick Saban doing? Because he just pulls people out all the time. Like, he must just.
Well, number one, they recruited at a different level because they've got more money than anyone else. Number two, probably number one, they've had success.
Sure, yeah.
And
Nick's
they've created
legitimate,
a culture of competition and greatness, tremendous success on the field, off the field. They win national championships. They've got a ton of money, and so their resources are almost unlimited in recruiting. Number three, their facilities are fantastic. Nick comes with, a ton of skins on the wall.
Yeah.
If you are a great football player, really from anywhere in the country, and Alabama's after you, it's a great honor. And like Nick will tell you, you come to UCLA or to Alabama because you want to compete with the best.
Yeah.
And that's what he wants. And so he's got it rolling down there right now. And, they've got some things that they're able to get done that, other schools really aren't able to get done yet. And Nick, man, he's first of all, he's a really, really good person.
Yeah.
And people don't necessarily know that about him because they see that, kind of stoic look. But he's got a great sense of humor. I know him very well. Great sense of humor, really good person, a great, fantastic motivator, football coach. And he's willing to do anything to help his athletes succeed, from sports psychologist to psychologist to any motivational speaker to seminars. He will do anything to help his players succeed.
Here on the Pacific end of the college world, the quality of schools appears for national level, championship level programs. It appears that the Pacific Conference is the Pac-12 is what it's called now, right?
Pac-12.
The Pac-12 is got to be academically the place to go. Like if you're a true student scholar.
On the West Coast,
on
really,
the West
really
Coast?
nationally, because if you throw Cal, Stanford, UCLA, and Washington in there, really, and I don't want to leave any
is that
schools.
State school?
It's a tough school to get into, and I don't want to leave any of the other schools out.
No, of
I think
course
it's
not.
A tremendous conference, but and USC is a great academic institution. I have two kids there, so I'll say that. But it's hard to get into UCLA. It's hard to get into Cal. It's almost impossible to get into Stanford. So we have some restrictions out here that limit our ability to get certain athletes into school. The SEC and many other schools don't necessarily have those restrictions, but they still operate under the NCAA guidelines.
Sure.
So it's just all about priorities. I think one of the great things about going to school like Stanford or Cal or UCLA or Washington or any of the other Pac-12 schools is the well-rounded experience that you get when you walk out of there.
Right.
Your degree really means something. And I'm not saying it doesn't at those other schools, because it does.
But legitimately, Cal is maybe the best state school in the world. I mean, it's so powerful.
They say that it is, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they've got Nobel Prize winners all over the place there.
Yeah, they do. And then honestly, when you think about recruiting, they just have more football players in the South. And Southern kids, they're enamored with the West Coast, and you can get them to come out on a visit, and they love it, and they want to come to UCLA. They want to come to UCLA, but Auburn and Alabama and South Carolina and LSU are after them, and they're from that area. And when it gets right down to it at the end, it's like, I can't do it. Culturally, it's just so different. And almost the same thing with kids from the West Coast going to the South. And they just, we have so many opportunities out here away from the football field.
Right.
And down there, they just crave that football environment.
Yeah.
It's an awesome environment down there. If you've ever been to a game in the South, or if you haven't been, you should go to one.
No, it's exciting. I like I said, I used to live in Southern Florida for a while, and it is definitely all about the U.
Oh.
Even when they're terrible.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, they're
does
back
not,
now,
it,
though.
Oh, no, they're back. And it does not matter. It's they are passionate about it, and then you don't have to go a few hours away to be at Florida or Florida State, and that doesn't even mention UCF. So
and now what Lane Kiffin's doing at FIU, and then what Scott Frost did down there at
UCF.
UCF.
Yes, UCF.
So,
yeah. It's an incredible place for football, and like you said, down here you could be a surfer kid, a lacrosse kid, you could be a 4-wheel driving desert kid. You could be into
baseball.
Baseball, soccer, all kinds of things that. Football isn't one of the prime outlets necessarily.
Well, lacrosse is cutting into the football world. As more and more parents are concerned about the safety of their children playing football, you're seeing kids move towards sports that are like football. One of them being lacrosse, that are really starting to captivate the interest of a lot of young kids and their parents.
I want to get into this safety and sports thing, but before I lose my train of thought, I want to ask you about. So in baseball, they have they're measuring all of the motion on the field, and it's incredible to see what the information is. And they stopped measuring baseball players in terms of miles per hour when they run. It's all about burst and feet per second. And it gives you a much clearer idea of what fast is, because there's players that go to first or third when they're not supposed to. But then when you look at the numbers, you're like, oh, I see why. Like, they have these things. Is football getting to that point where they're looking at that kind of analysis to figure out what fast is?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of different metrics are being analyzed in football all the time. Some apply, some don't, but you're always going to look at them to find out if they do apply. It's still very standard, the 40-yard dash, the vertical jump, the broad jump, the shuttles, the bench press. Those are what people are kind of looking at. But, we monitor all our players during practice with GPS systems to see, max speed, average speed, distance traveled. So we can kind of – because recovery is such a big deal now. But, we're always using metrics. It's just hard in recruiting of high school players because your access to them is so limited. You can't go out and do a lot of testing with them. You can't go sit at their game, like with a radar gun and get there. You're limited by the NCAA and how much you can see them.
Yeah, it's strange, the development process, right? Like, baseball is so hard. A very normal path means you graduate to the majors as a very raw 24-year-old player. Whereas football, you can come out full package at 21, 22 and have a huge impact on your team. And it seems like, and this is just a layman talking, once you get drafted in the end of the NFL, and if you're in the top 3 rounds, you are most likely going to succeed. Yeah, there's some people that wash out. Baseball is nowhere near that.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't know.
Well, you've got all the minor leagues. You've got a lot more players, too.
In
so many rounds. I mean, there's 7 rounds in the NFL draft.
Right.
In baseball, what do they have? 30
5,000. It's 5,000.
5,000. We're up to 5,000.
Well, there's also the international draft as well, or pool, where you have all these other players come in. Yeah, so you have, teams have 6 minor league teams.
Yeah.
Sometimes more if you count all the little academies and everything they do. Yeah, there's a lot of areas to do it.
There's room for that in football.
I was going to ask.
I mean, college football serves as a feeder into the NFL, and then I think there's probably a level in between that hasn't been accessed yet.
Yeah,
I think people have tried to access it, and people continue to try to access it, and eventually someone will be successful.
Right.
In creating a level that's above college. And below the NFL that feeds into the NFL, those that weren't quite good enough coming out of college to make it in the NFL, didn't have the skill set, the maturity, the size, the strength, whatever it may be, where they can go and develop themselves and then reach the NFL. But right now there has not been a successful developmental league in football.
Yeah, because, baseball even has the independent league where you can go as a former major leaguer and figure out whatever that thing is. We've got a guy on the Dodgers right now that just took that path, and got back.
And then the G League in baseball and basketball.
For sure,
So I think the NFL will get to that. I think someone will create a model that works really, really well and let their ego walk out the door so they can work with the NFL. I think a lot of it has to do with, you start a league and it's your league. And I'm not going to let the NFL, we're not going to absorb into the NFL.
Yeah.
But I think, as a matter of fact, I know there are people out there right now that are working on things. There's a new league that that Charlie Ebersol started,
Okay.
called the Alliance Football League, and I believe that Bill Polian's involved with it, who's a Hall of Famer, and I think that they have a really, really, really great chance to carve out that niche and create a level of play where players coming out of college can transition and develop into NFL players.
Yeah, because you must have encountered players that, like you talked about maturity, who mentally weren't just mature yet. You know, like the requirements, yeah, right? The requirements mentally for them, because society, especially maybe in the South, you know, where you're a football player, that's all we really care about. And then all of the actual life skills that you need to graduate out of college, to graduate into being an adult, those weren't required of you. So through no fault of your own, because of where you grew up, you know, you haven't been held accountable for things.
Yeah, I think that's changing, though.
Okay.
You know, I do. I think that college coaches, at least the ones that I know, for the most part, are very serious about treating young men as people first and players second, and recognizing they do have an obligation to make sure that these young men have a future, you know, beyond the football field.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that the major emphasis is not on football, but I don't believe that I've come across very many coaches that just treat a player as a player first and doesn't have any, concern for the long-term welfare of that player.
But can a player who hasn't had much asked of him socially mature in 4 years, 5 years of the red shirt?
If
Or
they're around the right people, put in the right environment. I always thought it came down to this. You need great structure.
Yeah.
And you need tremendous support of that structure that you create. And I'm talking about, you know, everything that's involved in the college experience as a student athlete. So you need that structure, you need the support, and then you need people that are going to hold them accountable, you know, that are going to make them do some of the things that they don't want to do, you know, that they're uncomfortable doing, and they're going to force them, because of this accountability system, to grow and push them outside their comfort zone. And I think teams do that. I think there's a movement towards that.
Help me understand that piece, because on the field, a coach for sure can get a player to go past discomfort and strive and push, and maybe sometimes push too far. But it does seem like, again, from a layman's perspective, it's hard to get any young person to go out and invest in themselves in terms of study or civic activity, whatever it's going to be, something outside of football. How do you get someone to do that?
Well, you can do a lot of different things. You can create off-season team competitions to create a peer-to-peer accountability system. You know, you're talking about going out and doing extra work on a Saturday, or going out into the community and doing something, and there are rewards, or you are penalized if you don't do it. And so you're creating competition amongst a team, you know, by creating teams within your team, and then peer-to-peer accountability within that team, so that everyone's moving in the right direction. Yeah. And then there's just the motivation. Look, if you want to be a great football player, and Mark Pattison, you can tell, it takes more. You know, Mark has a saying, he says all the time, it's from the old champion shirts, it takes a little more to be a champion. It takes a lot more to be a champion. I've been fortunate to be around 24, 25 members of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And I can tell you this, I've coached thousands and thousands of players, and they weren't all the best athletes. Right. But they were guys with the greatest work ethic, the most mental toughness, this standard of excellence that was beyond reproach, this inability to excuse themselves, you know, when they failed, and just try to find a way. It was more an emotional and mental difference than a physical difference that made them great. And so that's why some become great and some become average and some just kind of fall off. It's not always about skill set. You can do as much as you want in trying to motivate them to do that, but, you know, I believe that the guys that are going to be great are internally motivated, not externally motivated. And they are fully committed, not conditionally committed. You know, it is a way of life for them.
Yeah, we have a lot of really high-end musicians on the show, and we get a lot of that kind of a theme. And probably the most successful but most personally flawed is Sly Stone. And he said, if my music's not good enough, I don't deserve to eat. Mm-hmm. That's more than all in. That's
it's a passion. It's a life. And you know, the difference in football and, say, music or anything in the arts is in athletics, there is an end date. You expire. Right. You can't go on the field and earn a living anymore. So, you know, if you can take that attitude of I want to be great and I'll do whatever it takes to be great and take it from the field into the next endeavor in your life as an athlete, then you're going to be tremendously successful. Okay. But the process has to start very early in terms of setting yourself up for that success, creating opportunities for yourself when your football career ends. And what we see is a lot of players don't do that. And then they don't know how to transition into, real life, life off the football field. And then we read about these failures. Now, alternately, there's a ton of successes as well. We just don't, the media doesn't necessarily pick up on those because they're not.
It's not interesting.
Yeah, well, yeah, and unfortunately they're not. But I think they're interesting, and I try to use them to motivate and inspire the young guys that I've coached.
Yeah, I mean, Ray Parker Jr., we're going to have him on the show soon, and he retired before he wrote Ghostbusters, and he has and he got his advice from Bill Cosby, and the advice was simple. First, pay your taxes. Yeah. Then break the money into pieces, and you get 1/4 of what's left to do whatever you want with. But the rest of it is all towards your future, and he was able to retire early and only does what he wants to do now because of it. But there are 1,000 of his peers that have not done that.
In athletics, and I'm sure probably in the arts to a certain extent, is a lot of these young men grew up in families that didn't have money. Right. And they don't necessarily always realize that, it's not a fountain that flows forever. Yeah. At some point it gets turned off, and so you have to continually think about your future, and it's sometimes hard to get them to think down the road because, we are a society now where there is a element of our youth that are only interested in instant gratification.
Well, there's instant gratification, and there's also the need. I mean, I've worked a lot in conflict zones and seen a lot of combat time, and one of the things that drives the instability is the lack of things, the lack of resources. And so if you have the ability to bring electricity to your house, even for 4 hours a day, I'll be damned if I'm going to let someone else take it. I'll kill the motherfucker, That's how it goes. And so I will give you electricity because I have a generator. Well, now that generator turns into a place where mortars and gunfire erupt around.
Sure.
And
people don't think of it that way.
No, they don't, huh? So when I understand someone who comes from poverty or from a neighborhood that, like, people always mock, like MC Hammer. But the thing is you go around his neighborhood and mock him, and you'll get checked up. And they'll say, no, he put people to work who couldn't have work. And there's some people that took advantage of that, but there's also people that needed help. And he, yes, he didn't come from a wealthy family, but needed other people. And he's like, my job is to make sure these folks are provided for. So I am going to have an entourage. This won't last forever.
You know what's hard sometimes, a challenge in college is that, you get some of these young men with an attitude of, hey, I'm going to get mine. Yeah. I'm going to get mine. Yeah. And you're trying to integrate, the culture of team into your program. And then you got this, I'm going to get mine. And so, there's a dance there that you play with those guys. And ultimately, I think they all come around for the most part. I've fortunately been exposed to a lot of young men, a lot of people in this area that didn't come from a lot, that have experienced a lot of success and give back like crazy. Like, for instance, Snoop. I mean, his son was on our team for a while. I mean, I have so much respect for that guy. I know him well. I watch him. I see what he does in the community. He's like the Pied Piper to these kids. Yeah. He gives back. He employs. Whether or not you agree with, his philosophy, his language, or that he likes to smoke a little weed, I know this. It's a good man right there. Yeah. Good man.
Yeah, and when he was younger and he had his problems, and, Philip Oldemariam dies partly because of the whole life they were leading, he rejected that. He's like, I'm done with that. I'm going to go in a different, and he's definitely has done that.
Yeah, he's something else. I really respect him.
So I want to take us back to the way the NFL and football in general is looking at the health of players. Because Mark and I talked in the last time he was on my show about, and this show hasn't come out yet, but about Denali, and we've talked a lot about when your safety is not within your control. You go climb a mountain, and you've climbed Kilimanjaro, so you can push yourself past a point where your survival is no longer guaranteed and likely not possible. As a coach, you must look like Steve Young had to be pulled off the field. They're like, we were retiring you.
Yeah, I was there.
You're done.
I was with him.
Yeah.
I was
okay. So those times come, but how do you pull a Steve Young off the field that's what he's built to do, and can't believe in anywhere. There's no other way I can do anything else. This is what I have to do. I'll die on the field.
Well, it's changed a lot in the years since, say, Steve Young retired to now, because there's much more focus on long-term health. Certainly, the brain trauma issues, CTE, the work that's being done and the knowledge that people have at a younger age where they can make informed decisions. But as most great athletes, we all, I shouldn't say we, most great athletes believe they're invincible. So I was not a great athlete. It's like the boxer that wants one more fight, you want one more game. I think at some point, if there's a change in culture, a change in thought process, a continuing education towards long-term health, and when it's time to stop, then we'll start to see guys that are more willing to step away and protect themselves. But I think it has to start. To me, it's like an elevator. I mean, culture change has to start with the verbiage that's being used at the NFL and the NCAA, and then it works it down to youth football, and then youth football coaches have to accept that the way that things have always been done needs to change to match what they're doing in college and the NFL with regards to contact.
Yeah.
And working hard to keep our sport safe, because what we read about are the players in the NFL or post-NFL that are suffering from, issues.
Right.
Whatever those issues may be that were ineffective, all the hits they took. But what we don't realize is that they took most of those hits, the large majority of those hits, before they got to the NFL.
Yeah,
way before they got to the NFL.
Tony Jeffries was a Olympic caliber boxer, won a bronze medal. He was a national champion in the UK. He got a boxing gym over in Santa Monica, and he doesn't want anybody getting hit in the head. He's like, I've got hit in the head. I count a good number. It's well over 10,000 times.
Yeah.
And it's not like a glancing blow. He's like, that's full on. I would take 5 hard shots a day. I would spar this many. Blah, blah, blah. And then you do the math, and you're like, man, while your brain is developing, it's getting smashed. We've got Phil here too, and he's also passionate about this stuff. And what do you think, Phil? Like, when you look back at your youth football career, what impact is that having, do you think?
Well, I think it really comes down to it. Everyone sees the big hit on TV,
right?
And like back when we were playing under Coach James, it was all about all right, how can I light that guy up and hit him under the chin and we did butt drills every day. So, those micro hits accumulate. And
absolutely.
It may not be that one big thing that knocks you out. You're like, oh, my God, that guy's got a concussion. We need to have put him in concussion protocol, which didn't exist back then. And it's really the accumulation of those micro hits that I think are probably going to have the biggest impact. And that's why we're seeing all of these NFL player brains that are being analyzed for CTE. It's something like 98% of them have CTE, which is incredible.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of all of those micro hits all throughout their stages of football. And you don't have to be a pro, you don't have to be in the NFL or the CFL, which I consider kind of the NFL minor leagues, but because Warren Moon, where did he make a name for himself other than UW? It's the accumulation of those hits I think are equally, or if not more, devastating to the brain than those big hits that everyone's like, oh, wow, I want to see that on SportsCenter, right?
It's the subconcussive hits that accumulate over time. And we all see the big hit, like you said, the concussion, the guy knocked out. But it's those subconcussive hits, and it's the number that these people take over a lifetime. I'm involved with 4 companies or 4 ventures dealing with, trying to manage brain trauma and hit. So a company in Seattle called X2 Biosystems, this does real-time impact monitoring, and we've been working together for about 8 years now on some products that the NFL is using. And then there's a company in Seattle called Vices that developed a new helmet. Now, no helmet is going to stop concussions. We just know that because it's the brain sloshing around in the head.
This episode of the Break It Down Show is brought to you by Lions Rock Productions.
That's us.
We publish, evaluate, and develop podcasts just like this one, consult others to build their own, and create associated content and content marketing strategies.
So if you're launching or expanding your social media presence, your business or your personal brand, or if you just want to take your media presence to the next level,
reach out to us on Twitter
at Pete A. Turner
or at JohnLG69
at the Break It Down Show.
There's 1,000 ways to get a hold of us.
Now enjoy the show.
Is going to stop concussions. We just know that because it's the brain sloshing around in the head. I'm also involved with a company named Game Breakers, which has developed the soft shell helmets that all the kids are wearing on 7-on-7 and rugby and things like that. And then through Game Breaker, we've come up with a system called Practice Like the Pros. And what youth and high school coaches have to understand is that the NFL players practice differently. I believe there's only 11 contact days in a season. That's a 17-week season, including your bye week plus your playoffs plus, your camp. Now, there might be a little contact in camp, but not a lot. In the NFL, there's very little, if any, live tackling or live hitting except on game day. But there are, glances of the helmet at times, and those are, as you talked about, Phil, those subconcussive, or what the term you used,
they're
micro hits. Micro hits. And they accumulate. So what we're trying to do with this Practice Like the Pros is educate high school and youth coaches how to put a practice plan together, how to teach tackling as safely as you can, how to monitor your athletes, how to make sure you're not overdoing it, so that on game day, those are really the only hits that they're taking, But it's hard to do because there's always been this belief in football, tough, you got to be tough. You got your bell rung, you're seeing stars, Well, hey, if I got my bell rung, I got a concussion of some sorts. If I'm seeing stars, I got an issue. So it's not like, hey, get back in there. For me, it was always, hey, get your ass out of there.
Yeah.
And, I felt like it was my responsibility, especially in college, not in the NFL. And it was, a different time. And I didn't realize, but when I got to college, boy, I tell you what, I was so concerned about my athletes. And I got to know them so well, I could look right in their eyes immediately and know if there was something just even a little off.
Yeah.
And they were out to the doctor, and then the doctor had them. If the doctor cleared them, they were back in. Or if a doctor ever came to me and said, hey, Billy he's not doing good, I said, he's not going back in.
Yeah.
That's how we work. But we have to get that at a lower level so those accumulation of hits, are not producing NFL players that are leaving the game with CTE. And it's all about culture change.
So one of the companies that you are working with, they have a chip that they're tracking basically G-force and things like that. Is there every player handles or can take a hit differently, right? So it's really a physiological thing between player to player. Is there a baseline that you measure against so that you can, we know that a high impact hit is going to register this, but is there a baseline that can be established for each player that we know that if you've received, 15 subconcussive hits of this magnitude, that this is the equivalent of one enormous hit or something like that?
I believe that's the direction it's working in. It's just accumulating enough data points that you can make that determination, and that has not yet been done. Ideally for me, I'd like to see, X2 Biosystem, which is that company, combine forces with Visus, which is a helmet company, and get their product in the helmet, which is a little bit safer and more NFL and college players are using, and so we can get more data points, so we can figure that out. So that's kind of the scientific part of it. And then, like I told you, the other part was just the soft shell helmets and then the Practice Like the Pros system that we're trying to get all youth football leagues across the country utilizing. It's a serious issue. This has been, my life, football. I love the sport. It's provided for me. I think if you can create an environment where kids can play it relatively safely, anything we do is if we look, walk outside, you never know what's going to happen. But there are so many great lessons to be learned through the game of football. You talk about teamwork, perseverance, overcoming obstacles, working together, towards a common goal, the sacrifice, the setting of goals, the planning how to attain your goals, overcoming the adversity when you lose, the handling success when you win, the interaction between, people of all different backgrounds and races and religions and socioeconomic backgrounds. I mean, there's so much to be learned. And I know this, that, football players are, in my opinion, the most prepared to go out into the workforce because they know how to work. They know how to work, man. They know how to put in the time. They know how to get up. Shoot, at UCLA, our guys were in the weight room at 5:30 in the morning. So you tell them, hey, you have to be at work at 8. They're going to go, I can get a lift in. Right. I'll be at work at 8. I'll be fresh. They knew what they had to do. And they didn't necessarily come there that way, but they grew into that. So there's just so much value in football that I want to make sure that moms and dads out there of young players say, okay, you know what? It is safe to let my kid play football. And unfortunately, right now, we're not seeing a lot of that. We're seeing it go the other way.
Well, I have a son who's going to be a freshman at Lake Washington High School.
Okay.
Up in Redmond, Kirkland.
I'm an Interlake Saints.
Oh, geez.
And my kids went to Bellevue High, so.
All right.
You dang kangaroos.
Hey, they're purple.
I like it. Yeah, purple, yeah.
It wasn't up until his freshman year, which is this year, that he was allowed to play padded football. And he's been playing flag football up until now. And because I wanted him to focus on the game, because it's really about the gameplay. I want you to learn situational football. I don't want you to learn how to hit somebody as hard as you can, because that's not the game, right? And so his whole life so far has been about learning the game. And so he's actually a very good game manager, and you put him at quarterback, he knows what he's doing. You put him at safety, he can read what's going on the other, on the offense that's coming at him. So I think that there's a path that is safe. Obviously in flag football, you can still get, your bell rung if you collide with someone as you're trying to pull a flag or something like that. But
unless you're wearing a Game Breakers helmet, then
exactly.
You're okay.
But
there's a little plug.
Nice, nothing wrong with that. That's why we're here.
But and then it also gives that young brain a chance to develop and without having that traumatic injury that could impact him for even a longer period. So me as a former player, I'm comfortable with him going into, a full contact situation. If he was an offensive or defensive lineman, that might be a little bit different, because there are a lot more occurrences of those, subconcussive hits that accumulate, right? Yeah. Whereas if you're a safety, all right, if you learn how to tackle right, you can make that tackle without putting your head in jeopardy. Mark might be able to speak to being a receiver a little better. Your head's on the swivel, you're looking, but you may get hit by that defender. But the play-to-play activity is a lot less. You might have that bigger blow eventually, but me, it's that. I don't know if I'd let my kid. Right. I don't know if I'd let my kid be a lineman.
Yeah,
just because the way that they're designed to go almost like rams butting heads with each other.
Yeah, I'm a proponent of kids playing flag football for the exact same reasons you said. Learn the game, learn to play it safely, understand it, understand concepts. We rush our kids into contact at an early age, and really for what reason? And I'm guilty of it. I have 3 boys. They all played, 2 of them played football. I let them play before their mom wanted them to play. And I guess the reason I did is I felt like I was going to be at their practices, and I was going to be at their games, and I was going to monitor things, and I could tell. And I also felt like, at that age when they're like 6, they're like weevils, they wobble, But looking back at it, I liked that my kids played football, and they played up to high school, and they stopped because they went the lacrosse route after their sophomore years in high school. But 1 went soccer and 2 went lacrosse. I'm glad they played football, and I encourage young people to play football and parents to put their kids in football. But I agree with you. Let's play flag till we're 12, 13, 14, 15. And then let's learn how to hit. And then let's put the pads on. And then when we put the pads on, let's really monitor them, in a safe and sound way. And let's use the right terms. Let's say, hey, you got your bell rung, you'll be all right. Or let's not say, are you seeing stars? Oh, you'll be all right. Let's say, hey, we're going to limit contact.
Yeah.
We're going to monitor contact. We're going to continually look at our players and look into their eyes and see how they're doing.
I'm wondering if they have a chip in their helmet, and if they exceed a certain G-force, then they're done.
Well, I'm sure that will be part of the process.
It doesn't even have to be a concussion. It just has to be, we are going to eliminate these.
Once you find the data points and you find the parameters, then you can do that.
And then the threat of not playing will be enough to have those young kids go out and tackle safely.
But
right?
it's also coaches. To me, it starts with coaches, okay? You cannot have a youth football coach that has a Neanderthal attitude towards football. You cannot have it. Right. So in order to create that, head coaches in the NFL have to speak a certain language. Head coaches in college football have to speak a certain language. Head coaches in high school have to speak a certain language so that the youth coaches speak the same language. When I was a head coach in the NFL, I needed to not use words like, well, he got a concussion, but he'll be okay this week. It's not too bad, or he got his bell rung. Minor concussion. Like you say things like, we take head injuries very, very seriously. It's about having clinics where you bring in youth coaches. You say, this is how we practice. That's why this practice like the pros concept is so great, because we're going to go into youth organizations and teach them how to practice.
Let me jump in and ask about this then, because, so we can get the coaches on board, and there can be coaching certification that requires this kind of. But
some of these, they're dads.
The dads, right? Yeah,
exactly.
because I remember and it was awesome when Jim McMahon would run up and purposely try to knock him or his lineman out when they scored a touchdown.
That was the old days, Right,
yeah. But I mean, it's in me. I want to,
Well, we all love the big hit.
Right.
And how hypocritical did the NFL used to be that, they would fine James Harrison for a helmet-to-helmet collision, and then they'd sell video of it, to EA or something.
Right.
I don't believe they're doing that anymore, because I think they understand the hypocrisy of it. We're kind of Neanderthal men. We all like to see the big hit. I mean, that's why
I want my 6-year-old to be tough.
But there's I guess my definition of toughness has changed. To me, toughness has nothing to do with the internal workings of the brain, your neurological system. Tough, all right? Can I get up every morning at 5:30, and can I get to my workouts on time, and can I complete that workout?
Yeah.
Can I stay awake in a meeting, okay? When bad things are happening to me on the football field, or I'm not getting the breaks I want, can I keep a great attitude and stick with it, okay? Can I recognize the difference between, pain and injury in parts of my body that don't include the head, neck, or the spine? Because I don't think you mess with the head, neck, and the spine. Am I the guy that can get 2 yards on 4th and 1 to win the game? Those are all elements of toughness, mental or physical toughness. But when you're talking about the head, the neck, and the spine, you don't recover from those.
Right.
Like if I blow out my knee, we all know it. I can't walk. It swells. It's black and blue. I have to have surgery. All that. If I get hit in the head, and nobody really recognized it, and they put me back in there. I mean, we're talking about permanent damage, but you can't see it. So we just have to be diligent in monitoring it.
I remember when Lawrence Taylor blew out his Achilles in his retirement season. He's like, tape it, shoot it, let's go. I'm playing. Everybody's like, hold on, Lawrence.
Yeah, but that's different.
It's different.
Like I said, the head, neck, and the spine to me, those are you just please don't mess with
the same
those.
thing we learned too, through combat is you didn't get hit by that mortar, but there was a concussion wave. You sat next to someone shooting the Barrett, that thing's barking out energy, and it's hitting your body, and you're absorbing it, and not just in your brain, but in your thoracic cavity and all these places. And we're all taking in our fields, we're taking damage all the time.
Well, Visus and X2 Biosystems are working with the military. As a matter of fact, Visus has a contract with the military to now create almost all of their combat helmets, because they can reduce the concussive hits. X2 Biosystems work in the military to try to monitor, the real-time impacts, as you said, like paratroopers or people out in combat.
For sure,
I mean, the effects are almost exactly like they are in football.
Yeah.
And they're also working now with people in the construction industry, with the helmets there, too, to make everything more safe.
I hit my head so much in the military, it no longer hurt. Well, I could crush my head, and I'd be like, whatever. I felt that pain 100 times. It did not matter. I didn't get a concussion all the time, but I hit my head so hard one time, I gave myself a blister on my scalp.
Yeah.
Didn't even slow me down.
Well,
I'm like, is it bleeding? Nope, let's go.
Well, a guy in the military is not on TV every Sunday, playing in front of millions and millions of people.
Right.
So we have a tendency as a society, we kind of maybe have ignored that a little bit. Fortunately, there are companies that are not ignoring that.
Yeah.
And they are combining, their knowledge that they're gaining in the football world with, what we need to do to help our men and women in the military.
Yeah.
So that's exciting for me about the companies I work with as well.
Yeah, plug the companies again, too, because people need to look this stuff up.
X2 Biosystems does the real-time impact monitoring. Visus, it's VICIS, these are both Seattle companies, has created a helmet that actually is now rated as the safest helmet. They have two that are the top 2 ranked helmets in terms of safety of all the helmets now that are created, whether it's Rydell or Schutt or any of them. It's the Visus helmet. Russell Wilson's a big proponent of it. Many players are. Stanford's done a lot of research. UW and a lot of players are now wearing them. And then there's a great company that I think we're doing a lot of good stuff, Game Breakers.
Okay.
And a guy named Mike Jules, who's a friend of mine, and 2 of his kids played for me. And he created the soft shell helmets that they're wearing in 7-on-7. They're wearing in rugby. But he's also the guy that came up with the practice like the pros. He's also the guy that's a huge proponent of flag football to a certain age. And so we are now trying to join forces with the NFL to run NFL flag and introduce this practice like the pros into all 32 NFL cities in their youth programs. It's really exciting work.
I wanted to change gears as we hit the last part of the show and ask you a little bit, as long as you're comfortable talking, I think you would be. But when you get let go from UCLA, I mean, you're in the middle of a plan. You're trying to make something work. You know down the road you're going to be fine. You're going to figure out something else, and you have figured something else out. But there's a lot of folks out there that work workaday jobs that they get that call too in the afternoon. They're like, hey, here's a box. You and your stuff are leaving, and this big dude is going to stand next to you until you walk out the gate. So how does a regular person deal with that? I mean, how do you deal with it? Surely, you're such a positive guy, and you can tell you've got fantastic character, but it doesn't mean it doesn't hurt.
It hurts.
Yeah.
It's very public, and here's the 2 things that are tough about coaching football is, number one, you're probably going to get fired.
Right.
Actually, there's 3 things. Well, let's just say you're probably going to get fired. But when you get fired, to get another job, you probably have to move. And if you have a family, that means you're uprooting a family. And number 2, it's very public, and everyone's talking about it and writing about it, and you're a focal point, and that's uncomfortable.
Right.
When I was fired as a head coach, it was awful because I felt a responsibility to my assistant coaches and their families. And so, like, when I left Atlanta, I think like 35, 40 kids had to, pick up, leave schools. Moms had to sell and buy houses while dads were out, getting a job and working in another city. So that's tough. But to me, it's like you said, it's staying positive. It's having a plan. It's implementing that plan. It's having a network. It's using that network. It really goes back to who you are, the character that you've displayed through your career, so people respect you and they trust you and they want you as part of their staff. I think sometimes it's important to take a step back and say, okay, I've turned down a number of jobs that people thought I was crazy, but it was just a gut feeling. And usually it was always based on family. What did I want for my kids? Yeah. I've had opportunities to be head coach in the NFL at a number of teams and through the years, and have just said no because I didn't want to take my family into maybe that city at that point in their life. Now I'm open to anything. I'm older, my kids are older, and I love college football, and I'd love to coach college football again in a college town. But I think that you can allow yourself to grieve a little bit. For me, it was tough. It's been tough. I mean, this year sucked. Okay.
Yeah.
And I didn't see it coming.
Well, transition like that, it is tough. Yeah. It's always going to be.
But you just got to, just keep pounding sawers, keep rolling.
It's got to be hard because you're committing to those families too that you're bringing in. So they're like your extended family.
I know, it was horrible.
And you're like, I have to leave, but you guys have to stay.
And I have like 400 messages from parents and kids after I got fired. How grateful they were, and it brings tears to my eyes when I read them. And I haven't read them since that week that I got fired, and they all reached out to me. But when I was at UCLA, I had 2 opportunities to leave UCLA to coach college, and I had 2 to leave to coach in the NFL. And I rejected those opportunities, even though they may have helped my career, because in the recruiting process, I had told these kids and their parents, I'm going to be your coach. I'm going to be there. I'm not leaving. Right. And I felt that obligation. And I wasn't going to leave. I would have stayed at UCLA forever because and some of these jobs were darn good jobs. But the trade-off wasn't enough to pull me away from that commitment that I'd made to the kids and to the family, because I felt like if I walked in to a team meeting and said, hey, guys, guess what? I know we've talked about commitment and being selfless and, all this stuff and, all these lessons I've tried to teach you for these last 2 or 3 years, but adios, I'm out of here. I felt like the next coach that walked in and tried to say those things to them, they'd go, well, we've heard this BS before. Right. And as a parent of 4 and, a guy that's at my age now, it wasn't worth it to me. I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to do that with those kids.
We had Mark Schulman, who drums for Pink and other people, and he's a super motivational guy, way more than just a drummer. He's like, on the road, I'm sort of the dad. I'm the drummer. I keep everybody in sync, so I'm looking at I see everybody and the audience. I got a unique perspective. And when he goes on the road, they're not paying him to drum. They're paying him to leave his wife and kid here in L.A. and miss birthdays and all that stuff, because when he's on the road, he's a pro.
Yeah.
You get 100%.
Yeah.
So it's a different thing once you've established your place in your career. And I guess
when you're the head coach,
yeah,
you are the dad.
Right.
You're the surrogate dad. And
Yeah.
there are many times I'd be sitting in my office and a player would come in and just sit on the couch. Like, hey, what do you need? Nothing. Okay, you all right? Yeah. And I would realize that they just wanted to be around an adult male.
Yeah.
And they would sit there, or they'd lay and fall asleep on the couch, or they'd be on their phone, and they might do homework, or they might, ask me questions. I mean, it was just they wanted to be in the presence of an adult male.
Huh.
And, it was like their dad, or they were always asking me, is this okay? Is that
Yeah.
okay? Is this okay? I loved it when they come in my office and ask about advice about girls or about anything. It was like, okay, they trust me.
Yeah.
You talk about a rewarding feeling, of 4 kids, as I said, when they ask, it's great. And then you have 120 other kids that come to you sometimes. Now, a lot of times they're mad at you.
Right.
You maybe
Yes.
got into them a little bit. But,
Yeah.
but it's a great feeling.
When you're a coach, there must be a sweet spot. Like Steve Spurrier comes back and he's going to coach at South Carolina and he's expected to win. And when you don't, it becomes a problem. Even though he's doing a great job and he's getting kids that don't have enough to be elevated to a higher level, they've got degrees and that kind of thing. Are you in that spot where you've got to go to a place where winning, like you have to get with the program and winning is the program? And let's be honest, UCLA doesn't have a great track record for in recent times of building a stable platform where a coach can stay for a long time.
I thought we were doing it. That was the problem. We built that
Yeah.
new facility, we were recruiting well.
So some of this stuff is outside of your control, but it is.
But we didn't win enough, and
Yeah.
and that's ultimately comes down to being my responsibility. But I would like to go to a place where their values align with mine, which is, yes, we want to win. We want to win the right way. We want to have integrity in what we do. We want to recruit the right type of athlete. We want to make sure that they graduate. We want to create programs for them where they can have success off the field when they do leave the game of football, whether it's after their career at that university or after an NFL career. I want to make sure that we're taking care of their long-term health, that our doctors are in alignment with what I believe in, that the alumni understands what our goals are, that when an alumni turns on the TV or sits in the stadium and watches that football team play, they're proud of them because they play hard, they play physical, they play tough, they play smart, they don't make stupid errors, they win, they play with class, they look good in their uniforms.
You're talking about a platform of football, almost like a politician. We have all these planks, right?
Yeah.
But legitimately, how many schools have that platform that matches where you're at?
Quite a few.
You think so?
Yeah, quite a few. Yeah, you'd be surprised. I think that I think there's some people of real high integrity in college football. I think
I'm not questioning the integrity of these guys.
No.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we read the horror stories, and there's so many great stories out there.
Right.
I've met very few coaches that don't think like I do.
Mm-hmm.
I've met very few athletic directors that don't think like I do. Sometimes there are alumni that have given a lot of money that just want the wins.
Yeah.
But I haven't found a whole lot of those either. They want to be proud of their team, proud of their school, proud of the players on the team and the way they conduct themselves on and off the field.
Yeah. I mean, getting student athletes graduated, that ought to be, it'd be like it should almost be part of the championship formula.
Favorite day of the year for me was student athlete graduation, where I got to give them a big hug when they got their diploma.
Yeah.
And my favorite year coaching was the year we finished ninth in the country in the polls on the football field, and I think we finished in the top 3 or 4 in graduation success rate.
Wow. Yeah.
So, we were in the top 10.
This is UCLA?
Yeah, top 10 in the rankings for playing on the field and the top 5 in graduation success rate. And I'm going, okay, that was a good year.
Yeah.
That was a good year. We accomplished great things on the field and off the field. And I want to duplicate that somewhere else.
Yeah, and having that UCLA parchment on the wall, that is tremendously valuable.
Very powerful.
You can get a lot of degrees from a lot of places, but especially in this part of the world, if you've got a UCLA degree, you've got access to a lot of opportunity.
Oh, yeah, you can do a lot with that.
Phil, what do you think? What are your questions? We're finishing up.
I'd be proud to have my son come play for you wherever
you
you land. I might have to flip a coin between you and Coach Pete, but
Pete's awesome. Isn't he great?
He's fantastic.
He's one of those guys I'm talking about. He cares. He gets it. He knows. That's why he's successful.
But I put you up there on that pedestal.
Well, thank you. He's had tremendous success.
This has been a fantastic chat. I really dig it. And I love being able to cross like elite level warriors, elite level musical performers, and other like cool writers and stuff. Yeah. And then being able to sit and talk to you, because sometimes I'm asking questions for the benefit of the audience, but a lot of times it's for the benefit of me to understand how all these pieces fit together. One of the things I've learned, and I've got a technology podcast, same kind of thing. We have these entrepreneurs coming in and they're going to grind and they're going to work. But we all know, like, a great idea, common. Everybody's got a great idea for whatever it is, you know, a play. Everybody can draw a play. I got a play for you, right? Yeah. But where the real difference is can you continue to write great plays?
Right.
Can you continue to get the gym at 5:30? Can you continue to push? Can you persevere through all of the challenges and adapt and become better so that, you know, you're out now a few miles from here. Andy Summers from the Police, I asked him, like, artistically, who's out in front of you? Like, what are you reaching for? And he's like, there's nobody. I am the edge. And that takes a long time.
But even though, I'll bet you that, and I shouldn't say I bet, I would wonder this, even though he feels that way and he is the edge, I bet he's always pushing that edge, isn't he?
Oh, no, for sure, yeah.
That's what the great ones do.
Yeah.
They never are completely satisfied.
No, he's not. He's
happy, but not necessarily satisfied.
He's in his mid-70s playing. He's like, I play guitar better than I ever have.
That's so cool.
Faster. I've found new ways to do things.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and he's completely at ease with what he is. But he got there not through a singular moment. He got there through decades of work.
Decades of work. That's what it takes.
Cool. That's it. That's
well, thank you.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it.